When Exceed monsters were first announced, they all followed the same basic mechanic. You overlaid a couple monsters that had the same levels into a corresponding Exceed monster with a rank equal to the levels of the monsters you just overlaid, and over the course of a couple years, most of the monsters released did follow this principle to a T, basically. However, there have been a handful of monsters that didn't really follow this, or were using their other summoning method more often than their quote-unquote correct summoning method. Many of these monsters overlay themselves on top of other Exceed monsters, which leads me to talk about this subject, because I think it's pretty interesting that Konami has made these cards that in some cases are basically taking up more than one extra deck space in order to summon one Exceed monster, and I think that's kind of cool. We don't really see that with a lot of other summoning mechanics, and in today's video I want to talk about the top 5 Exceed monsters you are most likely not to summon correctly. Now I do want to give one quick honorable mention to Beatrice. A lot of people might think that this card would be on the main list, however there are plenty of decks that have summoned this using 2 level 6 monsters instead of the discard a Burning Abyss from your hand to summon it on top of a Dante. Now some of the most notable examples of this are any sort of Chaos Dragon stack, and several Monarch variants played this because with Domain you could reduce a level 8 Monarch to level 6, summon it, and then bring out a Karaz from your deck and then overlay for Beatrice. That was a pretty common play, and then also Ignites played Beatrice as just like a normal rank 6 monster. And the advantage with Beatrice, and this is sort of what separates Beatrice from a lot of these other cards, Beatrice is actually better if you summon it using 2 level 6 monsters, unlike all the ones we're going to talk in this video, which are actually significantly worse when you summon them through the actual summoning method. So anyway, that card's not going to be on the main list, but it is worth mentioning because it's probably the most popular of all the monsters that have sort of this summon over another Exceed monster mechanic. But anyway, let's jump into the regular list. Now number 5 is Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger. Oh man, this thing comes out all the time, most notably on top of Volcasaurus. Volcasaurus pairs so well with Gaia Charger, you do a ton of damage in one turn. Many times you can just OTK your opponent by doing that combo, but Gaia Charger pretty much shows up in every single deck that plays rank 5s or rank 6s. It's so efficient, and also it dodges sort of a lot of the drawbacks of some rank 5 and rank 6 monsters, most notably the ones that can't attack the turn that they use their effect. Now Volcasaurus can still attack monsters the turn it uses its effect, but it can't attack directly, so if you destroy your opponent's monster, do a ton of damage, and you want to finish your opponent off, summoning Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger is the perfect way to do that. Now this is lower on the list because this card actually did see some play with its normal summoning mechanic in Dragon Rulers back in 2013. This card, unlike a lot of the ones on this list, only takes 2 monsters to summon, and it's 2 level 7s. It doesn't really have any advantageous effects. All it does is give piercing damage to something, but in the Dragon Ruler mirror match, that was incredibly crucial because people were playing Draco Sack, and Draco Sack summoned 0 defense tokens, so you could make Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger attack over it for a ton of damage and steal wins that way. However, even though this card can be summoned that way, most people are just summoning this on top of a rank 5 or rank 6, so it made our list. Now number 4 is Downer Magician, the only other one on this list that just takes 2 monsters to summon. Downer Magician was incredibly popular, mainly when Burning Abyss first came out, because you could summon it on top of a Dante that had detached both of its materials, because once Dante detaches both its materials, it caps out at 1000 attack, and that's not very much. And also, by playing a Downer Magician on top of that, you could ensure that if your opponent had a trap card to get rid of the Dante would now almost always go to the graveyard, because a lot of commonly played cards back then were Karma Cut and Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, and if they did those on Downer Magician, well, the Dante would still go to the graves, he'd still get the add back, which was really crucial. But who's going to make a Downer Magician with 2 level 4 spellcasters? Probably not many people. Even though this card basically has a similar effect to Gaia Dragon just because it does do piercing damage, the fact that this thing actually loses attack each time it battles is really rough, and because there's so many great rank 4 monsters, there's almost never a chance when you're going to actually want to summon Downer Magician. However, in the rank 3 department, they actually lack aggressive cards, or at the very least back when people were really playing Downer Magician, they lacked aggressive cards, because now we have cards like Phantom Knight's Breaksword, but back then, and especially when Downer Magician first came out, there simply weren't that that many aggressive rank 3s besides Acid Golem, and Acid Golem restricts your special summons, so a lot of people went towards Downer Magician. One bad thing about this card is that it can't be summoned during main phase 1, only main phase 2, so you can't actually use it like Gaia Charger to secure wins by doing piercing damage. But overall, this card did see a lot of play, and not a lot of play from people actually summoning it using level 4 spellcasters, because who's going to do that? Number 3 is number 95, Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon. Now, I've talked about this card a lot recently because I played in Blue Eyes, as do most people. Who the heck, first of all, who's going to summon 3 level 9 monsters? But second of all, who's going to do that in the deck that's playing this card? I mean, the deck that wants to play these cards are all rank 8 based strategies, and luckily, you can make this card by starting with a rank 8. A lot of people make one of the rank 8 Galaxy Eyes monsters, and then from there they can upgrade into Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon, which isn't on this list because it's more of a stepping stone than anything, but it has the same sort of mechanic going on here. And once you make Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon, you can then place the Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon on top of that. So Dark Matter Dragon, unlike all of the rest of these cards in here, pretty much requires you to play 3 extra deck spaces just to summon this thing instead of just 2 extra deck spaces. But it does have an incredibly powerful effect, especially for a Blue Eyes deck, because it gains you a ton of advantage. And it's also the main piece of the Amorphage Goliath combo, because you can send both Amorphage Goliath and Archbrave Dragon to the graveyard, and then like a White Stone of Ancients to the graveyard. So you gain a ton of advantage, you get a huge stun value off of it. And yeah, this card has 4,000 attack, it can attack twice. It's a pretty big card, and in many cases, the Blue Eyes deck isn't super tight on extra deck space, and this card is so powerful that you pretty much have to make room to play it. But also, this card isn't the most popular of all these sort of cards that run with this same mechanic, so it's only at number 3. Now, number 2, we get to one of the most popular ones that uses this mechanic, and that is number S39, Utopia The Lightning. Now, many of you probably thought this card was a rank 4 that just required 3 level 4 monsters, but it's actually a rank 5. I know a lot of people miss that because they're so used to just summoning regular Utopia and then playing this on top of it, which, by the way, is the best play objectively. And sometimes there's sort of a middle stepping ground there if you want to play the Utopia Prime or whatever, but usually you're just going from one Utopia, which only takes 2 level 4s, into Utopia The Lightning. And the reason you're doing that is because no one's going to spend 3 level 5 monsters to make Utopia The Lightning. There are so many fantastic rank 5s out there, such as the Volcasaurus card that I mentioned earlier. There's no reason to waste 3 monsters to make Utopia The Lightning, when most decks just want to use 2 level 4 monsters, which is probably, I mean, rank 4s are sort of the easiest rank to go into, especially in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe not so much back in the day when True Guy was at 3, but at least nowadays, rank 4s are quite easy to make, and that meant that any deck that could play rank 4s can play Utopia The Lightning. However, Utopia The Lightning has kind of fallen out of favor recently with Link monsters. It's really hard for a lot of decks to find space for 2 Exceed monsters just to make Utopia The Lightning, and also a lot of people are just playing Kaijus to out the same things that this was outing. I don't think it's a bad card by any means, but most of the competitive decks these days simply aren't playing it because they don't have the extra deck space. However, I think if there's another really solid rank 4 toolbox deck in the future, this card absolutely will see play, despite the fact that it's not actually a rank 4. Lastly, I want to talk about Cyber Dragon Infinity. Now, why does Cyber Dragon Infinity make the top cut in this video? Well, because it has the most ridiculous normal correct summoning condition compared to any, I almost want to say any Exceed monster in the entire game. So most people summon this thing over top of Cyber Dragon Nova. All that takes is 2 level 5 machines, and then you upgrade into Infinity, and that's perfectly fine. That's seen a bunch of competitive success over the years. However, the normal way to summon this thing is by using 3 level 6 light machine monsters. And you might be saying to yourself, you know what, Doug, that's not that bad. Until you look up that there's only 3 monsters that fit that criteria in the main deck, and one of them is Cyber Barrier Dragon, which is basically a joke. So actually the most viable way to summon this thing, believe it or not, if you want to use the writ material on it, is basically you special summon UFO-Roid, and then you activate Inferno Reckless Summon to get 2 more copies of UFO-Roid. That is by far the easiest way to summon this thing if you actually want to follow the steps in it. Now there could be the argument made for, well Doug, why don't I just make a couple level 4 guys and then increase their level? Won't that be perfect? Well, at that point, why are you doing that when you could just increase their level by 1 and then make Cyber Dragon Nova and only use 2 monsters? Just seems a lot easier. But oh man, no one's gonna do this. Actually, I did this on a live stream. It took over an hour to get that combo set up, and I didn't even win the game because the whole deck was just designed to do that combo. Cyber Dragon Infinity, more so than any of the other ones on this list, is way less likely to be summoned the normal way. I would even argue that getting these criteria met is actually much harder than literally summoning 3 level 9 monsters for number 95. I think that's way easier than doing this because of not only the level restriction, not only the type restriction, but also the attribute restriction. It's just absolutely insane. Thank God this card can be summoned on top of Cyber Dragon Nova. Otherwise, probably no one would play it. But anyway, that's going to wrap up my list of the top 5 cards that nobody summons correctly. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I might try to do like a follow-up video talking about like synchros or main deck monsters, and if you guys want to see that, feel free to let me know. But I'll see you guys later. Bye.